Hey everyone, welcome to the Ascension Shard guide part 2, I guess. So this one's going to be updated for after the last update. Obviously they've added a lot to Ascension Shards and their lines to go all the way up to 51 stars instead of 27 previously. And so with this huge addition into the game, it does change, I think, how Ascension Shard should be used. And I just wanted to give an update with the new content in game with what's going on. So let's get into it. First of all, I just want to say I'm working off of the assumption that the average player is not going to be spending thousands of dollars in the game to open chests to get unlimited shards to ascend everything. So with that in mind, I'm talking to the average player, and my assumption is that the goal of Ascension Shards is to create the most long-term profit possible. I think that's the point, right? And so now that the lines are extended so far, the game is really encouraging people to specify one line or 4 lines instead of broadly spreading over a lot of different item types. It's really encouraging players to pick a few and focus there. You can have lines that basically look like this, and every single one is ascended, and you still don't even have enough stars. Like I only have 42, it goes up to 51. So you don't even have enough blueprints until you've paid for blueprints, or you get them from Kings Caprice, or some other way that you've gotten additional blueprints. I have every chest blueprint in the game as well, and I still don't have even any lines to 45 stars. And so, especially when you're first starting out and you don't have a ton of shards, I think still the best option at the start is ascending 4 lines to 15 stars, because 15 stars gives you a 10% energy discount for those lines. So just for gloves or just for bows or just for boots or whatever you're deciding to do. Because then if those are the lines that you're focused on, those are the ones that you're mainly crafting, unless you're mastering other ones or whatever, then it's going to help you a lot with making money over time, because you don't have to spend as much energy to surcharge items. So it's going to allow you to make money a lot easier. But before you start ascending the really, low tier items, like you would be ascending these 5 essentially to get 15 stars because they cost a lot less shards. You have to decide which lines that you're going to go with, obviously. So you need to go in and find basically 4 lines like this that aren't overlapping on resources, that aren't overlapping on tier 3s too much, that are going to make sense for you to craft long term, that these are going to be your late game crafts. And then once you've decided on what your lines are going to be, then you can begin trying to get your main lines, your 3 or 4 lines, to 15 stars. Most people it's going to be daggers, because daggers don't require tier 3 resources even at the highest tier, so you don't have jewels or ether. But you can decide for yourself what you prefer for your lines, and then once you decide that, you can ascend the first 5 items essentially. I think once 15 stars is achieved on your main lines, and those are going to be the main items that you're going to be selling in your shop, I think your next best bet is honestly just saving your shards until you reach the point that you've chosen what your end game items will be. These are my 4 items that I'm going to be crafting from now until I retire this account. The most important thing after you get 15 stars in these lines is going to be having these 4 items ascended all the way. Because obviously when you ascend an item, you get less resources spent, you get less components spent, which means it costs me 125k less per craft. And there's a 10% multi-craft chance, which means if this I can surcharge for 1.05 mil times 10%, there's an extra 100k. So essentially just by having this ascended, I'm able to make an extra 225k per craft on average, not even including any rarities, like just normals. So having ascensions in your main items, especially if those are the main ones that you're crafting over and over and over and over again, that is going to allow you to be so much more profitable long term. And then after that point, I think it's kind of up to you. A lot of people have really been considering actually ascending elements and spirits instead, because for free-to-play players, they don't have any best in slots for items anymore, maybe 1. So the crafts that free-to-play players are making aren't the ultra valuable crafts. And so it kind of makes sense for elements and spirits to be the main ones that free-to-play players are crafting if you want to go that route, simply because there's always going to be a demand for these. They're still going to be expensive, and you can still make good money and good gems as a free-to-play player doing this. So that's another option if you don't want to go with items, is that you could ascend elements and you could ascend spirits instead, and you could just primarily be an element and spirit crafting player. And I think that is a very viable option. I think it's actually a good option. The only thing is that if you're ascending these and focusing these with your shards, you're not going to have a 10% discount for energy in your shop, right? Because all of your shards are going here instead of into items where you're getting discounts. So that means that you selling in shop is not going to be as easy, and maybe you're going to be primarily a selling in market player rather than a selling in shop player, which is fine. It's just preference in terms of where you want your focus in game to be, what kind of player that you want to be, type thing, right? But I enjoy the process of crafting items, buying items for market, flipping them and selling them in my shop, buying enchants for market, enchanting my items, etc. So that wouldn't be the preferred playstyle for me, but if you don't mind that, I think it is a really good option. So once you've reached the point that your 4 main lines are 15 stars and your ultra endgame items that you're crafting long term are ascended, and you're starting to get some more shards after that, I think it really is up to personal preference. Everyone's going to play differently. Everybody's going to have different preferences in terms of the way that they like to play the game. And so it's kind of up to you. When we look at the Ascension trees, like I said, I have every free-to-play blueprint unlocked and even a couple of pack items, and I don't even have enough for 1 line to 45 stars. And so until more items are released into the game, I really don't think that aiming for 45 stars is a super viable option unless you are the person who's willing to be buying packs on a regular basis. So then we have to look at other options. I think 27 stars, as much as it was the goal for the longest time in the game, I think it is still really good, simply because you have your multi-craft chance, which means you can add a 5% to the gold that you would make from any item, which is awesome. So that's essentially, you know, your 5% anyways. And then your quality chance, which means that the chances that you're crafting legendary and epic items and things is increasing quite a bit. Resource reductions, as much as they are really nice, it doesn't actually change anything until you get to the uncommon resources, because even if you get the common resource reduction, then your uncommon and your tier 3 is just going to be your bottleneck anyways. And so I think until you get your uncommon resource costs down, and then you get your guild perks to the point that you have the reduced tier 3 or the increased resource regen for tier 3 resources, that these don't help out a ton. As much as you can craft them faster, that essentially means that you're running out of tier 3 resources even faster. So unless you have your guild perks to the point that you have that reduction or increase in regen for tier 3, I really don't see these as like ultra valuable. And 45 stars until more items are released or until you're buying packs doesn't do a whole lot for you. So it is a really interesting point where I'm wondering what they're going to do in game long term, whether it be adding a lot more items to the game for people who aren't buying packs, or if these, you know, really long-term goals for stars are mostly just for people who are pay to play players who are going to be spending the money to get all of those additional items that other people will not have available. So I'm not entirely sure what that's going to look like, but I think once you hit endgame, it's kind of your decision on what you want to be spending your shards on, what you think is going to be the most profitable for you long term, and think about your gameplay realistically. For me, I sell more in my shop now than I do craft. Quite often I have max energy and I'm just sitting here and selling, because with tier 10s, the way that I sell them, it's extremely profitable and really, really fast for me to make money. And so I just play differently than a lot of people. And so with that in mind, my priority for Ascensions is obviously getting all of the items to 15 stars so that they all have the energy discount, so that I can sell through every item in the game as efficiently as possible, right? And so that's why my goal has been 15 stars in every line, so that when I am selling, it's extremely efficient, extremely fast, and I don't even have to worry about what the item is. I can just sell items as fast as I possibly can and be making a lot of money. I think if you're playstyle isn't that and you're not selling a ton in shop, but you're strictly a market player, then your Ascensions are going to be going to different places than mine will. And so really, once you get those first few goals out of the way, I think the preference is completely up to you. So that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about today for Ascension Shards. If you have any questions or anything, or comments or things that I missed or whatever it is, please feel free to comment, let me know, or reach out on Discord, and I'll do my best to get back to you. And I'll talk to you all soon. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Peace out.